Welcome to the Skiffy Infinity Show's Mining the Genre Asteroid. This is episode number 6 of a show where older, overlooked genre gems are dug out and discussed anew.
The world's first quasi-feminist demi-steampunk secret society super science novel.
Is it the world's first of all of, I guess, if all that combined?
Yes.
Okay. Did you verify?
I did verify.
Okay.
I asked ChatGPT and it told me it was true. Oh wait, no, I did not do that. No, I know. If listeners don't know that I hate ChatGPT and Gemini and all these other things with a burning passion, and wish generative AI would be fired off in the sun, well, you're one of today's lucky 10,000 that you didn't know that fact.
Well, now there might be new people listening who don't know you, Paul. But anyway.
Well, now they know. Now they know the fact.
Now they know. I'm Shaun.
I'm Trish.
And I'm Paul.
And on today's show, we'll discuss 1921's The Secret Power by Marie Corelli. Holy banana pants!
I think this is the oldest.
Did you notice what? Far. Well, hold on. You're correct. It's the oldest thing we've done. But also, we just got a Configuration Queen subscription at Tier 1. Oh! Thank you very much, Configuration Queen. Sorry. I got the notification in my ears and I had to be like I couldn't hear what Paul was talking about. Yes, but Paul, I believe you were saying that this is the oldest book that we have covered, I think, so on far, the show in general, not just this specific subcast.
Yeah. So we went deep, listeners.
We did.
But before we get into our discussion, a reminder to our listeners, please share your questions and comments with us about our show at skiffyandfanny.com/listener suggestions. If you aren't already here, join us on Twitch for Shaun's Alphabet streams every Friday at 7 p.m. Central to be a part of our interactive live streaming format. Finally, be sure to join your Patreon, thanks for those who are already there, and be part of our special Patreon-only events on Discord. Please share and support this fabulous show so we can bring you more SFF awesomeness. Review us wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth is a big deal for fan-run podcasts, and we need your help to find new ears for this ridiculous show.
And you can also subscribe to Alphabet streams and support the channel that way, just like Configuration Queen just did.
I agree. Okay, so let's get down to this book. Trish has been apparently... No, you volunteered yourself to do this, by the way, because you did the script today. So you're going to tell us what this book is about, which I think is going to be pretty easy. So what is The Secret Power?
The Secret Power, I actually suggested this book for this time around because it was something I had read previously and because most of our books were no earlier than the 60s, and I thought it was time for mining the genre Asteroid to jump back a bit farther in time. And I had read this because I worked on a project for LibriVox and read a couple of chapters of the book. Anyway, The Secret Power starts out like a romance novel. There's this guy in a cabin in California having his meals delivered to him by a maid from a hotel. The maid is in love with him, but he's not interested. Later that night, a rich blonde woman comes up to his cabin and tries to figure out if there's anything to their former sort of romance thing, and he rebuffs her too, and she leaves. And a senator comes to the guy's cabin and says, "Oh yeah, so we were going to talk about that thing." And this guy, Roger Seaton, says, "Yeah, you know what? I can blow up the world, but I'll sell the government the secret if they promise to use it to stop any more wars from happening. Because the First World War was, the Great War was horrible, and I don't want that to happen anymore. But the senator says, well, I can't really promise that the government is going to use this to blackmail the rest of the world into not having wars. And so Roger says, all right, I'll see if I can sell it to Britain instead. Anyway, then we follow the rich blonde woman who had come up to the cabin, and she goes to Italy, where she's where she is restoring an old palazzo, and she's also building an airship that nobody understands how it's powered, but it beats its wings like a bird instead of being powered by motors that anybody can see. And over in Italy, men are falling in love with her and not understanding why she doesn't just settle down and get married, but she is all about the life of the mind and not interested in marriage and babies and stuff. Are we spoiling the ending, or should I just stop there?
It's from 1921, Trish. I feel like
Go for it.
104 years later, you haven't read it. Are you gonna?
All right.
Hopefully, yep.
She takes the airship on a test run to Egypt, and cruising over Egypt, she hears a voice coming from what seems to be a mirage in the distance, and actually it's a secret hidden city. And they say, you seem cool, but you can't come here now because you have people in your plane, and we just want you. And she says, oh, and if you do come here, you have to stay here forever. And she's like, well, I'll think about it, and goes off again. Meanwhile, the maid is in love with Roger Seaton and trying to convince him to let her be his love slave, basically. She wants to be his doormat, and he's not interested because he's all caught up in his invention and, threatening to destroy the world if they don't stop having wars.
Literally accurate.
Yeah,
right.
No lies so far, listeners.
Right. Our rich blonde girl, Morgana Royal, is talking with a priest who turns out to be a secret agent from the hidden city, and he encourages her to go off and join the hidden city. And but then she finds out that something horrible is happening in California and rushes off to the rescue in her White Eagle airship. And it turns out that Roger Seaton blew himself up and thousands of people dead in what people thought was an earthquake in California, but actually he did it through an accident. She saves him and Manila the maid, and Manila recovers, but Roger Seaton is still in a coma, apparently forever. And Manila convinces Morgana Royal and the priest to let her marry the unconscious, previously rejecting her, Roger Seaton, so that she can, respectably take care of him for the rest of his life. And then Morgana Royal checks out and heads off toward the City of Gold. The end.
Yep.
Yeah, that is the plot of the story. You forgot the 8,000 pages of characters talking about the role of women in society, or complaining about
There's
marriage,
a lot of that.
or
I thought
talking.
that was implicit in the love slave stuff and the life of the mind for Morgana Royal, but we can get into that.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
I don't think it's implicit, because I think you need to understand that characters spend pages rationalizing why they hold the view that they hold. So Manila literally spends paragraph on paragraph talking about how I will be your servant, your slave. I will be your love slave. I will do anything you want. You can have me all you want. And he spends pages and pages talking about why women suck and stay away because love isn't real and I don't want you even though you're pretty. Like, it's bananas how much dialogue is dedicated to just ragging on women, or when it's Morgana, ragging on men and marriage, which, in fairness, given the men that were shown, I think her rants are a little bit more justified, even though they come with the side of eugenics, but still. This book is crazy.
This rants are more like philosophical dialogues. This is like, it's like Marie Corelli decided to swallow Plato and Aristotle and stick parts of dialogues into her book in large anchors for the chapters.
Apparently it was common in her work. I read a bunch of academic research and some stuff about her because honestly I was kind of surprised when I looked at her wiki and saw how much stuff is mentioned there that she's not really mentioned. Nobody talks about her in genre. Go ahead, Trish.
Yeah, she's a real subject for mining the genre Asteroid because she was bananas bestsellers in her time. She wrote 25 novels. She was a better seller than Dickens and Kipling put together. She she was universally lambasted by the critics who kept saying really terrible things about how pedestrian her mind was and how she wasn't any good and they despised the public for buying her books. Famous critics in newspapers, all talking about how awful this woman writer was. But yeah, she was super duper popular. She was the best-selling author of her day.
So she's the Brandon Sanderson of the time?
Oh, no. Brandon Sanderson wishes he could be the Marie Corelli of his time. So there's an article by Sharon Crozier de Rosa called Marie Corelli's British New Woman, which talks a little bit about this. This is in volume 14 of History of the Family. See if you can get somebody with a library database access to get it for you if you want to read it. But she talks in this about how popular her work is, citing a bunch of other research. Because Trish is correct. She was massively commercially successful. She was selling, on average, about 100,000 copies of her books per year. Right? That's a lot by late 1800s, early 1900s standards. It just wouldn't be clear.
That's by any standards. I mean, I know authors that would kill children to get that sort of sales of their books.
Yeah,
right,
she went
and she was
unrivaled.
writing for decades. Her first book, A Romance of Two Worlds, was published in 1886, instant bestseller, and she wrote at least until 1921. So that's almost 4 decades. Yeah, she died in 1925. So spanning the Victorian and Edwardian periods of literature.
I mean,
so why do we think she was so popular?
So
what? I kept reading this and turning page, even with the gigantic philosophical dialogues, and people arguing about the role of women, the role of men, marriage is bad. Let's go to the secret city. I just kept listening. I listened to the audiobook, and yes, there are 2 chapters at LibriVox narrated by our Trish, which is delightful. But
yeah.
I couldn't figure out what the secret was. I mean, I kept listening, but
I can help.
I bet Shaun can tell us some more about that.
So,
or at least what the literary critics say.
Well, I can say this: the literary historians, what they say, because they're all rather enamored with her because they find her fascinating. So she's writing in the era when basically the concept of the new woman emerges. This is sort of like the woman who seeks out independence, and it sort of gets associated with a lot of very negative ideas for its time, right? Women who are atheists and are rejecting God and other kinds of elements that get put into it. This is like the critical perspective of new women. But this is this idea of like women's suffrage and the women's movement of the late 1800s into the not the early 1900s, because that makes me old, the early 20th century, right, where women are sort of pushing for more rights and more freedoms, and you have this burgeoning feminist movement, and then you have this reactionary movement. And part of that conversation is obviously sexual liberation, not necessarily in the same way we mean by like the 60s and 70s. And all of that's going on in the culture, and there's all this very hotbed debate. And Corelli apparently was very critical of the new woman, but yet many of her books dealt with and presented very explicitly many of the very salacious topics that people were criticizing in the broader culture, even when she's criticizing them. So this book, I think, less so than one of her later books, which is The Sorrow of Satan, which deals with, you can imagine some things that it deals with. So in some ways, it's because her books are controversial. They're dealing with subjects that she's not supposed to be dealing with in somewhat explicit ways. I mean, by our standards, it would seem rather pedestrian, because the kinds of things she's dealing with are like not big deals to us, but would have been at the time. And so that's part of what I think is going on in some of her work. I mean, she writes some romances, right? But she also writes these books that are very sort of pushing boundaries of what's kind of acceptable in the literature at the time. And pretty much everyone and their mother is reading this. And when I say that, I don't mean that like as hyperbole. She's well known for being read not only by like, basically day laborers, people like servants and so on, anyone who could afford a copy of the book, but also by like princes. Apparently, like one of the dukes of Russia notably loved one of her books. So she's being read by everyone from the aristocracy all the way down to like a scullery maid, essentially.
Winston Churchill read her books, at least some of them. Like, he probably hated them, but apparently he was trying to keep his thumb on, the pulse of popular culture.
There's something about her work seems to be attractive to pretty much everyone. And I think that's part of the problem with why the literary critics don't like her work. I think it's less about the content, although certainly some of the criticism is about the content, because some of the stuff she writes about is kind of like, we'll get into it with this book. But some of it is also, I think, like she's tapped into something in the culture at this time that they can't make sense of. Like, why would people want to read from every walk of life, aristocracy, all the way down, and everyone's reading this? Like, you can sit there and argue, and they did, literary critics, you bastards, arguing endlessly about why we should read Moby Dick again, right? Notoriously a failed novel by Herman Melville, who actually did write much better books, I would argue, than Moby Dick, and you can fight me in the comments.
Oh boy.
But it's just so weird to me that like they just can't grasp that somehow her work has hit like a vein across the entire culture that everybody wants to see. And some of it is, again, it's just the topics. It's the way she's approaching topics, the kinds of things that she's covering, which is why she gets, I think, 9 of her novels get adapted to screen in the era of the silent film, obviously. And then crickets. And I don't get. Where did the crickets come from, right? I mean, I want to point out, right, I think 2 of her films at the end, right, basically when she had passed away, are done by Paramount Pictures, right, in the era that eventually becomes the studio era. And Paramount is like one of the top 3 studios in the studio era. So that's not like a minor studio, it's not like what David would talk about with like, bring in one of those like cheap studios that's doing a horror film on the side. So what happened? How did she go from being at the top to, I don't know, Trish, do you know?
I think Trish has an answer.
Well, I don't know, but I can certainly hypothesize that part of it had to do with why she was so popular at the time. She wasn't just writing about gender roles. She was very deeply interested in trying to reconcile a lot of New Age ideas with Christianity. So she was writing about creationism and evolution. She was writing about reincarnation. She was writing about crystal power. She was writing about electricity and, not just to run your machines, but as a mystic power of life. She was writing about a whole ton of ideas that were super interesting to people at the time. I mean, spiritualism, seances and stuff like that. was super big around and after the First World War, before and after. And she was just writing about a lot of topics that really, really hit the popular interest. And the way she was trying to reconcile it with Christianity, I think, must have appealed to a lot of people who, had been told, don't go to a seance, it'll corrupt your soul or whatever. And she was trying to find ways to make reincarnation and other woo-woo ideas more palatable in her novels.
Interesting.
So let's look at this. Look at this novel. So we have super science. We have this amazing airship that's basically a gigantic ornithopter because it has wings that beat. We have the secret power. We have this secret power, the titular secret power that destroys the state of California.
Right.
We have a secret society of a secret city that apparently been around for thousands of years. We're told. Kind of controlling and watching things and having high technology, but being separate from the world. So yeah, you could see the mystical elements, the super science, all that sort of stuff being part of the zeitgeist, like from the Theosophists all the way through. It's like, I mean, spiritualism was big back then. I mean, look at Arthur Conan Doyle is most famous now for Sherlock Holmes, but back then he was more famous for his spiritualist stuff and his fairy stuff. So. Maybe that was in the water, and she tapped into it just so perfectly that she sold tens of thousands of copies of every book. And
yeah, very possible.
Even with gigantic philosophical dialogues about marriage and men and women and everything else.
I wonder if some part of why her work becomes a little bit less popular, not necessarily all of her works, but it is present in The Secret Power. But there are social Darwinist ideas in many of her books, including this one, by the way. There's a lot of references to like different races and so on and so forth, including this secret place, the Brazen City or the Golden City, right? Which is presented to us like almost verbatim told to us that they're like a different higher class of human, ? We don't really know what that means because the book doesn't really get into it, but there are these social Darwinist ideas of like even Seaton sort of gives us this, where one of his motivations for why he wants to use this weapon to stop people is like he thinks that if two groups of people won't sit down and have a conversation and basically not go to war, they're going to go to war. Well, you just wipe them all out and you get rid of all of the chaff, essentially, is his argument, right? But that idea is not explicitly rejected by Morgana, who also thinks that there are more superior versions of people that exist. She's just not willing to go to the level that Seaton wants to go, where he's like, I'll just wipe people out. She's just like, I just want to leave and go be with the super people.
Well, I think the book more or less explicitly states that Roger is destructive and wants to blackmail and threaten the world because he's a man. And she, because she's a woman, wants to do things like move airships with it and do productive and beautiful things with this power.
Yes. Yeah, there's a gendered juxtaposition about the treatment of science for sure here.
Yeah,
Apollonian.
Apollonian versus Dionysiac, and Seaton is Dionysiac and she's the Apollonian. Yeah. Which is a gender flip, like I mean women, especially in this time, are often shown as like destructive and dangerous. I mean, look at Frank. Look at like she, for example. But here, it's the woman who's not the destructive. I mean, it's the man who blows up California because of his arrogance and his power.
This is in contrast to some of her earlier work, where because this work is like atypical, I think, of what many of the scholars talk about. Because they're talking about how she's sort of pushing back on this concept of the new woman by suggesting that the ideas associated with new womanness, right, are destructive to civilization. That in many of her books, those ideas come up. That is not the case in this book. It's certainly the case there are many stereotypical presentations of characters here, but what we get presented is that, at least in terms of science, women are basically superior at science because they're seeking out the ways that are less destructive, more productive, essentially. Whereas men, when granted great power, choose to ignore the responsibility that comes with that power, to cite a certain uncle who is a lovely man and keeps dying in movies. And so I think that in some ways this is like a counter. I mean, one of the things I noticed, I should say, is that also the scholars seem to like stop at about like 1919 for some reason. Most of them don't talk about some of her later work. And I wonder if part of why they do that is because something happened where she starts getting a little bit like, I'm going to kind of flip that around, or maybe my ideas have changed. And that's a lot harder to deal with than some of her earlier work, where frankly, it's just more critical about the sort of liberation of women as a concept and what that means, right? Which is why like atheism comes up in some of her earlier works, but atheism is like associated with destructive qualities. It is not about scientific pursuits, as you might see here, where Morgana is sort of kind of an atheist. I guess you'd call her like a deist, sort of. She doesn't. It's not clear if she really fully truly believes in God, but she certainly does not believe in Don Aloysius's conception of God. She's very much interested in the science and what it can do, and she has the ideas about that. Whereas we do have characters that are religious, but yet they're also associated with things that are weirdly not destructive. And so this book, I think, very much pushes against a lot of what are some of the views that are expressed in some of her earlier work. And I find that very interesting, even though I kind of have issues with this book, to say the least.
There are certainly a lot of issues to have with this book. And a lot of people who aren't used to reading older fiction are going to find this impenetrable, because it's just full of several page long speeches by people, and people reiterating points and going over them, and there's a lot more discussion than there is action in this book. But I thought it was going to be interesting to read and talk about, as reminding people that old science fiction isn't all just Jules Verne, how do submarines work, and stuff like that.
Wilson's Time Machine, yeah.
Corelli never explains how the secret power works, and she doesn't need to. That's not the topic of her discussion.
She doesn't discuss how her airship works or its power source. So the banana pants idea of an airship with ornithopter fleeting wings.
Right, but she doesn't need to, because that's not what it's really about. It's about. It's interesting because the priest argues that science is based on faith, and any scientist worth their salt will tell you that science is based on doubt, not on faith. But it was interesting to see some of those perspectives and to see what people were thinking about, the idea of a hidden city didn't start with her. There's plenty of older science fiction with, the hollow world theory and, Pellucidar and, hidden worlds inside. Plenty of other earlier science fiction writers or scientific romance writers might be a more accurate way to describe this book and this period of the fiction. Plenty of them have done that idea before, and of course this was 15 years or so before James Hilton's Shangri-La Lost Horizon.
Lost Horizon,
yeah, so it's certainly a continuing idea, and there's plenty of fiction nowadays about secret the immortals, and people who are who consider themselves advanced, who are living apart, or like the X-Men Krakatoa or whatever. So it's an idea that
but the purpose of those hidden societies is kind of different. In Lost Horizon, at least the most recent version I've seen is I will confess, the 1973 musical version, which is not good, but there we have it.
Talking about the book.
I know, I haven't read the book, but that musical, that version kind of makes explicit they see themselves as being a bastion for when society falls, which is not what a lot of these lost societies do. They set apart, or they're lost from long ago, or inheritors of Atlantis, or what have you. So Lost Horizon is an interesting counterpoint to this. Where the Golden City, I believe it's called in this book, has been around for thousands of years, but they're kind of like, we have high technology, do we just stay apart? Whereas Shangri-La is kind of like, it's almost trying to be the David Perry and Matt Gabriel are going to hate me, the Dark Ages monasteries holding civilization together. Yes.
Or looking ahead to Isaac Asimov's Foundation and the library.
Right. That's a great comp. That's a great comp, Trish. Yeah. So they're going to preserve civilization for when things are going to fall, because things are obviously about to fall. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Golden City, their civilization isn't going to fall. They're just accumulating people with power and influence and the right mindset, and Morgana is the one they want. I mean, they don't want anybody else, as you said in your summary, they don't want anybody else on the airship, which is why the ship doesn't go there. They just want her. So, I mean, I would have liked this book to have maybe less philosophizing speeches and more exploration of her as to her mindset and how she got to be such a genius. Because I think genius is a good word to describe her, because, I mean, she invented this airship. I mean, yes, she has wealth and power and can throw money around at problems, but she designed the thing. It's like, I would have liked to know more about that, but that's not the point of this novel, obviously. It's like, how did she make that airship, and what really makes her such a great candidate for the Golden City that we don't see? We only get, it's almost like a mirage on the horizon. We don't actually get there.
So that's fun, because one of the things I thought was interesting about this book, and the sheer volume of times that Morgana is referred to as Fae. And
well, I think she's having fun with the name there.
I think she is, but I also think that it's not totally wrong. Like, I don't think she's literally Fae in this story, in the sense that the Fae really exist, right? She's having fun with that idea. But Morgana does reference on herself a couple of times that she's not like the rest of people. And not just because she's a woman who knows some science stuff and is really smart, which does make her unusual. But even the Golden City, the spokesperson she talks to, even suggests that she's not like the rest of people. And so I take that as there is underneath that Fae reference something real, that she is not like other people. Because as I pointed out earlier, right, there's this weird element in here of talking about like superior versions of people and other, almost like there's another ethnic group of humanity. Like there's different human groups. And there's one that is like more advanced in its mentality. And Morgana is suggested to be that because she's been accepted by the Golden City. And they basically say to her that she is like one of them. She's not like the rest of people. The question is, we don't know exactly what that means, because Corelli sort of is like hiding the exact answer on this. There's like references that we can't take quite literally, because like she can't be literally Fae in this story. It doesn't quite make sense. And there's references that she's unusual, but we don't know exactly what that means. There's no moment like in chat, Configuration Queen says mutant smart. And it's like, well, if at some point they went, she's a mutant, right, or she's got extra genetics, we'd be like, okay, got it. She's not quite like the rest. She's an evolution. But the story never explicitly tells us. It just subtly hints that might be the case.
Yeah, well, I think she's certainly taken to be on a higher mental plane than most of humanity. She can concentrate and make these great inventions and stuff. I think also her generally dispassionate nature. I think she's kind of ace, but also she doesn't relish getting into quarrels. She's not trying to show people up by look at how great and wonderful I am. She doesn't have a lot of personal vanity. Yeah, she's certainly not a typical woman. Not a typical new woman even. Corelli doesn't get into genetics or anything like that, and I don't think that's necessary. She just here's the Golden City may have been trying to attract superior people to itself for centuries. So I don't really need to know. I don't feel a need to know why she's so special. She just is. And I don't think they would ever invited Roger Seaton to join them, even if he
Absolutely
had known
not.
about the city, because
I want to get into that. Yeah.
He is a horse of a different color. He is a very angry man, a very he's only interested in his own ideas, basically. He's not interested in other people or the world except to control it. I do think I did really rather enjoy the emphasis Corelli kept putting on him after the accident when he went into the coma and he could only mutter unconsciously, subconsciously, whatever. I have the secret. I am the master of the world, he mutters from his invalid bed. Because that was his whole plan. He had the power and he was going to make the world bend to his desire, which not having more war is a noble goal, but just threatening to blow up countries that got into war with each other is not the best planning method, I think.
He's Thanos.
Wait, I was thinking I was going to go something earlier than Thanos because when I was listening to this book and thinking about his secret power that can hold over any nation, I went back to 1940 and Robert Heinlein's story Solution Unsatisfactory, which is about the invention of basically atomic dust weapons, which can't really be countered, and a group that has them basically has power over the world, and the main character, not a point of view character, basically wants to stop all war and basically hold the world hostage with his little group of special people who will be able to fly these planes, and poor main character is kind of caught up in that. And it turns out, and just like the title, it's a very bad solution. It's kind of like having a gun to the rest of the world as a way to ensure peace is not a stable form of any sort of peace or government. It's just not. It's a system eventually going to break down, and bloodily. So even if Seaton had gotten the U.S. government on with this plan, it would not have lasted. It would just turn the world into a pile of rubble. Yeah. So he might be brilliant for inventing this thing, but his motives, his motivations, his whole mental outset is clearly not suited for the Golden City.
100%. He's the opposite of the coin, right? Because it seems, from what we can tell, the Golden City is about building towards the future. They call themselves essentially that, right? They're for the future, whatever the future is, right? Whereas Seton is kind of just more of the same. I mean, the kind of weird thing I thought about when thinking about, because the technology we're talking about is a nuclear technology, right? It's sort of referenced this way a bunch of different times. We don't know exactly what it is, but it's basically nuclear weaponry of some description. And there's like a huge irony in this story, which is that Seton's whole thing is he wants to stop another war from happening. He wants no more wars. And his solution is the very technology that in no way stops violent confrontation, as we have now learned over the course of over half a century, right? Almost a century now. We're getting really close. And so it's so weird to me because that technology, that juxtaposition that we get between Morgana and Seton is we get the sort of madman in Seton, literally a man in this case. The senator even says at one point whether he's not even sure whether or not Seton is sane. And it's like, yeah, that's a justified reaction because the guy's talking about massacring entire nations of people, right? So we got him, this big destructive guy using this quote unquote nuclear technology that would blow up entire cultures. And then you got Morgana, who's basically invented like the nuclear power plant, but smaller, who is, found a way to harness this energy for a productive purpose. And what's never talked in any of that is, well, what happens if we just don't do Seton's thing and we don't do just Morgana's thing, which is kind of for herself, right? And we do the middle ground where we don't blow each other up and we come up with a way to make electricity so everybody can have power and we can all work together, right? Obviously, they don't know that nuclear power plants have problems of their own, right? Right. If we just did that version, if we took these two smart brains and we got Seton some therapy, which he desperately needs because his position on women is messed up, maybe we'd have more of a beneficial future. But that's not possible. And part of it is because Seton he does kind of go mad. I use the Thanos reference because he's so committed. In a way, he feels to me like a character who saw World War I and was traumatized by what it did, even though he doesn't tell us that he did, that he can't actually think rationally about this. He's so desperate to stop it, he's willing to kill some people instantaneously to do it. But then if you remember, the senator also tells us at one point that Seton's plan won't work because there's no money in it, right? So building bombs and blowing people up it will bring in the money.
Seton War, which makes us think of a book you and I read and discussed with the author some years ago, the read by Lyndon Nagata, which basically like there's got to be a war going on somewhere, and basically churning up wars for profit, and these poor mercenaries stuck in that grind. So yes, it's basically kind of predicting the whole military-industrial complex 40 years before Eisenhower.
Yeah. Right. Well, there were a lot of novelists writing in the 1920s about how moneyed interests caused the First World War and would keep causing war. And that, unfortunately, is tied up with some unfortunate ethnic stereotypes and prejudices.
That is true.
Yeah.
But, there's certainly an element of truth to it that, there were newspapers that whipped up war sentiments to sell papers, specifically, the Hearst yellow journalism and stuff like that. But,
talk about that some more, because one of you has a note, and I think it's you, Trish, that's about her thing about journalists, because she goes after journalists in this book. Yeah.
Corelli in this book has a lot of nasty things to say about journalists. If low-minded and illiterate scavengers are employed to write for the newspapers instead of well-educated men, we must put up with the mud that the scavengers collect. We know that every journal is more or less a calendar of lies. There's a lot more about how awful the press is and how it, causes some of the bad trends of society. And this probably is partly because she came in. She the author came in for such savage criticism from newspaper critics and stuff who said that she had the mind of a, forget what it was, a laundry woman or something like that. Just savage.
Wow.
Wow.
Critiques of her stuff, and couldn't understand why people wanted to buy this muck. So I think partly she must be feeling defensive about newspapers and stuff, and putting that into her book. But she probably also sincerely believed that the newspapers had axes to grind and were
had agendas, yeah.
Whipping up sentiments to further their agendas and to sell papers.
Yeah, she notoriously also avoided press coverage at interviews, all of it, for her entire career. What I saw described as effectively epic degrees of fighting against it, which I suppose is much easier in, the 20th century, early 20th century, late 1800s, than certainly today. But yeah. So she did not like the press.
Yeah, she left London and bought an estate in Stratford-on-Avon and lived there with her lifelong female companion, to whom she left her entire estate. Never actually said anything about that, but she may have had very strong reasons for not wanting the press to pry into her personal life too much.
Interesting. Yeah.
And she also was big into historical preservation of buildings and stuff like that. Yeah. Which doesn't have much to do with this book, but it's just fun. Interesting, looking at her biography, such as it was. She also did a lot of unreliable narrator stuff. What interview she gave, she tended to make more pleasing histories about herself than what actually happened.
Oh, how nice
in
of
her
her
life. Yeah. Well, her actual name was Mary McKay, and she was a musician originally who renamed herself Marie Corelli because, Italian opera singers were big back then, and kept that name when she went into a writing career instead.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so we keep skirting around it a little bit, but can we talk about the fact that Seton is a loathsome toad who has horrific views of women, and this book's treatment of women in general is irksome?
Yes.
Right. The book flat out states that, women have awful lives because they have to choose between a life of a mind in which they're going to be forever lonely, or marriage and babies, and men are terrible, and women's time of beauty and happiness is inevitably short. So women's lives suck. And, that's just it. The implication is that Morgana gets to escape this fork because she's going to the Golden City and life will be much nicer there. But for most women, their lot is miserable because you can't have anything good that lasts.
And it's interesting to me that this book, as we've mentioned, there are these long monologues where characters will talk about the role of women, basically, and Seton's the first one we get, and he is I wanted Minella to punch him in the face immediately, but then I realized Minella's also stereotyped here. These characters are somewhat caricatured in their portrayal, and I think on purpose, or
more archetyped,
or more I would say stereotypical. archetypical to me I get archetypes as well. But, Manila is presented as this sort of extremely hyper submissive woman who just basically wants to worship a man. She refers to Seaton as effectively a god on multiple occasions, calls him a god, and wants to worship him and basically be his love slave. And that's not us making up words. That's language she actually uses. And Seaton basically tells her, like, women are like worthless. They don't offer anything. Why would I get married? Because, like, you're not worth anything to me because you're a woman and women suck.
Women are just distractions to Seaton.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even when he is nice to Manila, which I'm using that word very carefully.
Very carefully.
Condescending.
Yeah.
Right, he's super condescending. And he still says the most mean things to this poor woman who... I don't understand what she sees in him. But
she's got it bad for... I want to talk about the... eventually we're going to get to the... To the end act of this thing, or maybe I should bring it up now. I mean, Seaton's in a permanent coma, and Manila marries him. First of all, it's like, how is this even remotely possible under the laws of consent and free will that she gets to marry? I get why she wants to marry him, because she's been in love with him for this entire book since the first chapter,
yes.
But how is it ethical that she gets to marry him? He can't consent to that. Yes, yes, he's an invalid basically for life, and she's not going to have babies with him. She's just going to take care of this guy for the rest of his life. But, like, how is that even remotely okay? I mean, that this guy's been basically mumble that he has the powers now. Is now bound in marriage to this woman that's been pursuing him all this time. It's almost like his worst nightmare. He's lost his power and he's trapped in a marriage. So is this Corelli having one over on this?
He has explicitly rejected a relationship with Manila previously when he was of sound mind. Repeatedly.
Yes.
Yeah. So
in no uncertain terms.
It is super not cool that Manila convinces the others to let her marry him just to avoid talk, just to avoid nasty rumors going around about them. No other reason.
I mean,
and she swears that if he ever regains consciousness, she'll just leave. And that way, it'll be okay that he didn't want her, because he won't even know that they're married.
Which makes me think of the movie When You Were Sleeping. Did you ever see the movie When You Were Sleeping, Shaun? Mm-hmm. It's a Sandra Bullock movie. This woman is in love with this guy she's never talked to. He has an accident and he has memory loss, and she swoops in and basically pretends to be his girlfriend.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. And then goes back to meet his family and stuff. It's like pretending to be his girlfriend.
It's creepy.
It is creepy. In perspective, it's creepy as fuck. I mean, yes, it's a Sandra Bullock movie, but it's creepy as fuck. Pardon my language. And this is the same sort of creepiness.
It's creepy. Yeah.
I mean, okay, go ahead.
I kind of read this as them throwing a bone to Manila, because she tells... Well, no, I'm not saying it's ethical. Just to be clear, no part of this is ethical or correct or right. Right? I'm not saying that the book is like, oh, what a nice thing they did by throwing Manila a bone, right? But the way they talk about it at the end, right? Manila implores them, please let me do this. It's what I've always wanted in my life, basically, is what she's saying. I'm obsessed and I love him, and I want to do the one thing. I want to basically become his servant, essentially, by being but let me marry him, and so that it'll be, extra special. And Morgana basically tells, I can't remember who specifically, maybe it's her pilot, but she basically tells him, I'm just gonna let her do it because, right, it just kind of feels like she deserves some sort of pleasure in this life. Essentially, this is the only thing she wants to do. I'm allowing her to fulfill her lot in life, as it were. But it also is, when we get to the end of it, like very tragic, because Manila literally says if he ever comes out of this coma, I'll just disappear as if it never happened. So it is just for her, right? And it's also, let's not forget that in no way do they talk about the fact that Seton is a mass murderer and maybe he should not
they
be
destroy
allowed.
the entire U.S. state.
But that's what I kind of think is going on. And I don't think the story is remotely
manslaughterer.
a mass manslaughterer. Yes, an attempted genocidist, because he basically wipes out California. I just kind of feel like the story is not really invested in that kind of philosophical conversation at all. It is fulfilling Manila's narrative, which from the beginning has been, I am here to serve a man. And I want the one particular man, and I now get the one particular man. And the man who has rejected everything, but also done a horrible act, loses literally everything that matters to him and has all of the things he does not want to do occur to him. He's just completely unaware of it. So that's sort of like, almost like it's a tragedy, like a Greek tragedy for Seton, right?
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, almost
he
like
certainly brought about his own downfall. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, I thought until toward the end that I mean the book seemed to be kind of trying to push Seton and our heroine Morgana together. It's like because like brilliant mind together they can be even better. And it's like no fake out. Morgana's going to go to the city and he's lost everything, and Manila gets him as a consolation prize. It's like,
yeah,
and in such a non-consensual way.
Right. Well, I think Corelli was pretty definitely saying that just having brilliant minds together is not enough for a relationship. Because Morgana was initially attracted to him because two great minds, but figures out pretty soon that he is not going to make her happy, to say the least.
Well, he can't, right? Because he even tells us, I mean, they both talk about the value of marriage. Morgana's conversation, I think, is more interesting than Seton's because she talks to the priest and asks him, like what is the benefit of marriage? Like, do people end up being it's not the priest. No, it's the lady that he talks to, like Lady Kingwood, I think, right? Who's like her live-in companion, right? Who basically tells her, like, in marriage, you're not necessarily happy, right? You sort of, you just like, I don't remember the exact line, but you're just like kind of are compatible and don't basically drive each other insane. And that's basically what marriage is. And Morgana like tells her point blank, like, why the hell would I do that? That sounds not at all ideal. I'm good with no marriage whatsoever. And it's so interesting to me because this whole book, the idea of love and marriage, like love as a part of marriage, right? Like multiple characters who are main characters tell us love as we understand it does not really exist. On that subject, Seton and Morgana are almost identical, except that Seton is totally alone, right? The only people who visit him are people he keeps telling not to visit him and people he just wants something from, right? Whereas Morgana has very clear friendships and people she likes and people she likes, but they like her for reasons she's not into, but she doesn't hate them. She kind of feels bad.
She has a social circle.
Yeah, she has a social
circle and Seton's a hermit, basically.
By design. And
by design,
he's a cantankerous little turd. Anyway, so I bring all that up because I think so much of this book is like interrogating, what's the value of things like love and marriage and relationships to different points of view, to different ways of being. Seton's being the way that he is, which is, I think, a way that is antisocial and not how we want to be. And Morgana, who is certainly bucking the expectations of a woman in 1920s anywhere, but is at least a much more desirable version because it is social. It doesn't abandon the social element of human nature. But she still don't like marriage, and she ain't getting hitched. Awesome. I'm glad I killed the show.
You did not kill this. You did not kill the show, Shaun. What else do we have?
Well, we're getting close. We're getting close to the end. So one last thing you want to bring up, Paul? Go for it.
Yep. I mean, I keep thinking of Morgana as kind of a more benign version of basically a gilded age, or even a modern age wealthy person. I mean, she actually wants to do something. She did not something so totally horrible. I mean, horrible with her wealth. She wants to build interesting machines and things. She's not. She's much more palatable than, say, Andrew Carnegie. I get the sense she's really, really wealthy. It's like we just don't really get the. I mean, she's got a palazzo in Italy. She's fixing up. She's got this machine. She can do whatever she wants, but she's not trying to change U.S. presidential elections or blow up rockets over Florida or what have you. She just wants to do her thing, and it's a more positive version of the 1% than you generally see, which I appreciate, because she's not evil with her money, whereas Seton is definitely, because Seton must have some wealth in order to have developed this thing. But Seton just wants power and darkness and, put a gun to everybody. Said where Morgana is much more benign, as a benign version of wealth. I mean, yes, eat the rich anyway, #, but maybe eat her last. Yeah.
She means well, but she is very specific and capricious in her beneficences. She's providing for, she gives the count who is trying to get her to marry him, she gives him some money just because she felt a little bad for turning him down, so he doesn't get to restore his estates. She flies across the ocean, for 3 days to pick up Roger Seton and Manila. She doesn't do anything for the thousands of other people who are dead and dying in California. Correct. Nothing. She just swoops down, picks those two people up, and flies back to Italy. So
I misread
she's not a bad person, but I wouldn't call her a benefactress of humanity.
She benefits the people that she cares about at the end, because she does give money to some of the people around her. But you are right.
Which is what anyone who's not a monster does. Yeah.
Correct, yeah. But you're completely right that she has enormous wealth. We don't know exactly how much it is, but it is described as gigantic. But she does not, as you say, use it for any obvious purpose. I mean, like the thing I was saying about the different technologies. She could literally solve the power problem for people. So everyone has electricity in the world. She could give this technology to, or use her money to build more of them and make it so people have them. Or build affordable long distance transport, because this is before, we really have the airline industry, right?
Well, she does say that humanity is not ready for this, and she may well have been right in 1921 not to give out nuclear or whatever power secrets.
Nuclear fission. And in the end, what does she do? She does go to the life of the mind of this hidden city and leaves it all. And if you notice, it mentions, like, when they find the wreck of the airship, all the high technology has been stripped out of it.
Yep.
There's no. So she very clearly is afraid of it falling into the wrong hands, and so I mean, she's at least thinking that anyway. Yeah,
it's something I think the book. I just don't think Corelli's interested in those questions, like to really explore them, which I think is a shame, because I actually think that's a very important question to be asked. Is you've invented this technology, but like, can you give it to a culture that's between the two wars, right? Written at a time when you don't know the second one's coming. So what is what does it feel like in that moment, right? Because like Seton mentions a bunch of times about giving Germany his technology. I don't think he's actually serious, because
I think he was talking about giving explosions to Germany, not giving
I
the
don't
power
think so.
to Germany. The only people he talked about, the only governments that he offered his secret to were the U.S. and the UK.
Oh, no.
And he was saying that, Germany is probably going to do stuff again, and if they raise their head, I'm going to whomp them.
You're right.
Nope. No. I found it. But Roger Seaton was not of a nature to sink under or above. If the wise men of Gotham and England refused to take first advantage of the knowledge he had to offer them, then the wise men of Gotham and Germany or the United States should have their chance. Oh. No, he was ready to sell it to Germany too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He does say a little bit later, I don't know the exact page number, but it's after he gets the letter from the senator telling him about some syndicate or whatever. And he says, I should waste no more time, but offer it to Germany. Germany would take it at once. Germany would require no persuasion to use it. Germany would make me a millionaire twice over for the monopoly of such a force. But he does say earlier in the book that he was pretty sure Germany would start another war. So,
yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think we can really rely on him being totally accurate in his understanding of global geopolitics. Just saying.
No.
And he's not as rich as that, though, because he says in that same line he doesn't want to be a millionaire. So he's clearly, doing it on a shoestring.
Yeah.
It's Morgana who has all the power of wealth.
Right. So she has the superpower of her mental acuity or whatever, but she also has the superpower of wealth, which lets her
so she's Tony Stark.
Realize.
Then.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Tony Stark. She's realized murder.
Yeah.
Well, and isn't that curious? Because there's another juxtaposition, because Seaton is effectively poor by choice, ? Whereas she is wealthy not by choice, and yet she is presented as being comparatively the more benign force. I find that curious because we would not hold that perspective of the ultra wealthy today.
No, we would not. No, we would not at all. I mean,
no.
But it's just. So, do we have anything else?
Sean, I'm sorry that you hated every single character in this book.
I did.
Apparently, I thought the chaperone was kind of nice. She didn't interfere with Morgana. She seemed perceptive, but she knew what she was interested in and wasn't interested in. She had a strong enough character to refuse to go up in the airship. Maybe that was for the wrong reasons, but I thought I kind of liked the companion.
She was nice, and the priest. I liked the priest. Yeah. Before I knew he was from the Golden City and he was a secret spy agent. But I hated the main characters. And it really just comes down to, I could not, after chapter 2, listen to Seaton talk about women anymore. I really can't. I just was like, I'm done. I got it, bud. You don't like women folk of any description. You think they are lowly creatures and they need to not be near you. And I don't know. You could just choose to not be a dick at this point. Manila has heard you. She has heard you say no in no uncertain terms. At this point, just be nice to her. She's bringing you milk and bread, you little weirdo. Just stop. But he was like, no, I got 6 more rants to go. I'm going to show up on Joe Rogan's podcast any moment. And it's just, drove me nuts. But yeah, I don't know. I understand for its time what it was trying to do. I just think for me, I just really struggled to care about them in any meaningful way. Like at the end, I was like, oh, Seaton is just a guy who's basically dead, who just repeats the same ridiculous line. And I was like, oh, good. And Morgana is gone. And I'm like, great. I don't have to hear her give any more of her rants about marriage. And Manila, unfortunately, I feel so bad for her because I don't know who hurt her, but her obsession with the man who despises her and has literally said he does not like her. I just treated her horrible for the entire novel. Yes, it's very clear she's like that very stereotyped. I am a woman and the man is alpha and I'm meant to be like subservient. And I'm like, great. Mm-hmm. put her with the Count, because he seemed like mostly an okay guy, and like maybe that would be fine, and he'd be happy and she'd be happy, and they could go off and rebuild his Caesar palace or whatever, and everything would be that would have been better for me, because at least she's doing what she wants to do. Anyway, I'm rambling and ranting. I cannot take long rants about why women suck. I just can't do it.
This has been the most contentious Mining the Genre Asteroid book we've ever done.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you hated it. I hope you at least found it interesting.
Yes.
In
I
some
did.
parts.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad I read it. Don't get me wrong. But this is not a book that I would assign in a class or recommend to read, per se.
Even though I recommended it to you two for this podcast, I certainly wouldn't recommend everyone who listens to this podcast should go out and read or listen to this book, even though it's free on Gutenberg or LibriVox.
And 2 chapters narrated out of the book by our own Trish Matson.
Sure. But I thought it was an interesting point in the history of scientific romances, which, had started evolving into science fiction. And an interesting point in, social development with the arguments about the gender roles and stuff. So
I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're not upset with
interesting. Okay.
No, hardly.
No, I'm not mad at all, just because I don't like the book per se. I'm not mad at you. I'm glad I read it, because I found it interesting. But I eventually just approached it as an academic. I stopped approaching it like a traditional reader.
Right.
Which is how I would recommend people approach it. Is honestly come at this from like a sort of scholarly research perspective.
Right. Interesting to genre historians. If you just want a good book to read, pick something else.
I agree. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we got to stop. Yeah?
Okay.
All right, folks.
Yeah.
So that is a podcast. If you'd like to let us know what you thought about this episode and you were not here live with us to share your thoughts in real time, you can send an email at skiffyandfanty@gmail.com. Or if you were in our Discord, for our Patreon Discord, you can obviously go to the show discussion channel or even the books channel if you'd like to go there. And then that you can go to at patreon.com/skiffyandfanty. You can get through there if you aren't a member already. You can find the show at Blue Sky, Threads, Mastodon, YouTube, a whole bunch of other places. All that is at skiffyandfanty.com/skiffythings. And if you want to see us live and interact with us live as we make shows, we do a show every Friday at 7 p.m. Central at twitch.tv/alphabetstreams. So please join us. Always spread the word, tell your friends, review us on the apps, please, because we're competing with like Jeff Bezos money at this point. So help us find other people. Me, I'm at ShaunDuke.net. My socials are at ShaunDuke.net/DukeThings. And then I obviously am here at twitch.tv/alphabetstreams Wednesday and Sunday at 6 p.m. Central.
And you can find me, Trish, on Blue Sky at P.E. Matson, on Mastodon at TrishEM at newsy.social, and on my blog at whatsthewordnow.blogspot.com. And of course, I write reviews at Skiffy and Fanty. I had 2 book reviews out this week, so doing pretty good there.
You are on fire this week. You can find me, Paul, ubiquitously on the internet, except for the fascist hellhole portions, as Prince Justin. That's PINCEJVSTIN. I do book reviews, I do podcasts, I show a bunch on streams. I am everywhere you want to be, maybe.
Literally. He's on our money now, if you didn't know. No.
Oh, dear God.
All right, as required by
make this happy.
the Skiffy and Fanty bylaws, I must make this happy now. And I'm going to say this, that as we were reading this book and I was grading, I decided that I would steal a almost trillionaire's entire wealth to build us our very own Skiffy and Fanty themed giant flying eagle creature that we can fly in. And so I will be unveiling that after the show with just to my co-hosts, and then we will take a trip.
With pictures.
Yeah. All right. And on that note, happy ending and scene.
Bye.
Bye.